come back to that in some detail later. This whole items idea that gives us back a list of key value pairs, because it's not just a list of keys or a list of values, it's actually a list of key value pairs, allows us to write in Python a very clever and elegant loop. What we can do is actually, this items gives us back each item in the list has a key and a value, and we can actually take two iteration variables. For a.k.a, BBB, this is two iteration variables. And if you're coming from another programming language, this is super cool, and it's a Python-only feature. I never have seen another language that's capable of doing something this simple and that elegantly. So what this basically does is says, we're going to simultaneously advance these two iteration variables. So this is going to be the key and the value, the K and the V. Key and the value is going to be Chuck 1, then they're both going to advance. Fred, 42, Jan, 100. And so that means in this simple loop, if we just print them out, we're going to get the key value pairs, of course, in the order. And so it's sort of a.k.a. and BBB simultaneously walk down these key value pairs. And so that's really pretty, and it makes for a very succinct loop. The syntax is a little sort of disquieting when you first see it, but it's a super elegant thing, and you just have to say items. If you don't say items, you just get the keys. If you say items, you get the key value pairs, and you have to have two iteration variables. If you don't have two iteration variables and use items, it'll complain and say, what are you doing? I'm giving you two things, and you don't have two variables to receive them. So two iteration variables and items are basically related. Now, we're going to take a look, and this is code that I showed you perhaps many weeks ago about, I said this is a little story about how to read a file and count all the words in the file. And now we're back to it. And at this point, you should understand every single character of this program, every single concept of the program. You should literally stare at this and look at it, code it, play with it until you absolutely understand it. So let's take a look. Again, I showed you this weeks ago. So we're going to ask for a file name. Then we're going to open the file name. Then we're going to make an empty dictionary. Again, this is all stuff you've done before. And then we're going to have an iteration variable that's going to go through the lines in the file. Right? So line is going to go line, line, line. Then we are going to split that line, each line into words. Chop, 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 chop. So that's words is the list of the words in one line. We're inside of a loop that's going to go through all the lines. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have the word iteration iterate through each word in the line. And then what we're going to do is take each word in the line, and we're going to do this histogram. Right? So we're going to, this is going to run not only just for every line, but for every word in every line. So we have a nested loop for every line, then we split it, and then we go across the line. So it's almost like a typewriter where we go ding, ding, and that's what we're doing. Ding, ding, ding. So it's like the outer loop is going down, down, down the lines, and the inner loop is going across the words. And eventually we are going to see in this last line, every single word in the file. And we're going to do the counts get word plus one, which is our magic histogram making line that if you don't remember what that is, go back a couple of slides. I just talked about it. At this point in the code, and it's important to be able to draw these lines, at this point in the code, you have the histogram, and it's in the variable counts. Now, we want to find the largest one. Now, we have written loops that can find the largest in a list, but now we want to find the largest value in the key value pairs of a dictionary. So we're going to start with we're going to know what the largest count is, and the largest word has that count, and we're going to set them both to none because we're going to prime our loop. We have to prime our loop, and we're going to say to none. And so then we're going to write one of these cool things that says for word comma count. So word and count are going to go through the key value pairs because we've got items here. So it's going to go through the key value pairs, loop through each key value, whatever it was. There could be a million words in here. We're going to go through every one. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that big count is the current largest count we've seen so far. And if it's none, well, then we haven't seen anything, or the count we just read is greater than the big count so far, we are going to jump in, and this is sort of like, oh, this is a new personal best count for this particular data set. And so we're going to remember the word in big word, and we're going to remember the count in big count. So this is just a max loop. It's a maximum loop with the extra thing that we're recording in addition to what count is the largest. what the word that was associated with that count, recording it. So again, this is a starting part of the loop. We're going to do some work, and then when we exit the bottom of this, big word is going to be the word that is the most common, and big count is the number of times. And so if we run a file, we say, oh, in that file, 2 is the most common word, and it's 16 times. If we run the clown file, well, the is the most common word in 7. And so this now is, and this could have a very large file and give you the most common word. And so that is sort of a really good application of dictionaries. So dictionaries are the most powerful, well, they're the most powerful collection we've seen so far. It is good to see both lists and dictionaries to understand what collections are. They are things inside of Python that can handle more than one item inside of it, and we'll learn about another collection about tuples in a second. Just understand the get method, because that leads to very compact code. Understanding there are various ways to iterate through dictionaries, and so we've learned a lot. But in the next section, we will learn even more and put these together and do some sorting and do some other stuff, and really start to see the real power of dictionaries. I'm going to do some coding. It's related to the Dictionaries chapter, chapter 9, and we're going to do some word counting. That's basically right out of the slides but I'm going to just write the code in front of you rather than have you look at it in the book. So what we're going to do is I've got my text editor up here, and let me start by making a new folder. For my chapter 9 exercise, and then I'm going to go and make an untitled file. That was from the previous one, and I'll do what I always do, print hello, and save it. And save it here into exercise 09 and ex09.py. So now I have a folder that's in my py4e folder, and that happens to be in my desktop. py4e is my folder on my desktop, and now I have all of these subfolders: cd ex08, ls is dir on Windows, ls, oops, I got to go up one, ex09 ls. So I've got that file right there. Now I'm going to want to read some files, and so I'm going to bring some files down. A couple of files, Python for Everybody Code 3 intro.txt. So I've got this URL, and I'm going to save it, save page as, and it's really important that I save it in the same folder as I'm going to write my code, just so that when I open this file it knows where it's at. So I've saved that one, and I'm going to also take this clown text. I'll use this to make my life simple, so I have a real short thing that I can show you how it works. And so now if I go back to my terminal, I see I've got exercise 09 Python, intro.txt, and clown.txt. Okay? So let's go back to my text editor and get started. I will prompt for the file name, input, enter file, colon, space. Now I'm going to do something. If the length of the f name that I just read is less than 1, I'm going to say f name equals clown txt. I do this so that I can just hit enter and it defaults to clown.txt. If I want to give it a different name, I can. So this, if I just hit enter at this prompt, then this will give me a string that's 0 length. So if it's less than 1, I'll just assume that. So let me open that. Handle equals open fname. And let's read through it. For line in handle, we'll strip it. Line equals line.rstrip to take the white space off the right hand side, and then we're going to say print line. Again, I'm not just doing this. When I write code, I just saved it. When I write code, I do these kind of stuff all the time just for my own sanity checking. And so now I'm going to run Python 3 ex